I'm going to start my story when I'm 7 years old. I lived in a hippie commune in Maryland with my family, and my mom in 1970 got turned on to the Grateful Dead. And not long after that, she decided she needed to move to California because that's where the Grateful Dead played most. And the lifestyle and the whole, her desire to live in community and off the land became priority. So we basically sold everything we owned, bought a Volkswagen van, and my mom, my stepdad, my baby brother, and my other brother who was 8 years old, I was 10, we all hit the road, spent the summer traveling across the country, and landed in California where we ran out of money and ended up at a hippie commune in the Santa Cruz Mountains. That was also a free school. So it was perfect because my parents were teachers, so we were going to live in a hippie commune and go to school there. And that is how we landed in Boulder Creek, California. Now, 2 or 3 months later, the Grateful Dead were doing a set of shows at Winterland in November of '73. And I had just turned 11. And I really wanted to go. At that point, I had heard the music for years, and I had met some kids that were like 14 and 16 that were at the free school that were like the Dead, and they turned me on to it. So once I got into it through friends, not just through my parents, I had to go. I just had to go. I knew it in my soul. I had to go see this band, although I had no idea what I was going into. So my mom reluctantly agreed to take me because she didn't really want a kid there, but I wanted to go so bad. She said, okay, you can go. So got in the van with a bunch of hippies, 2 van loads, cruised up to the big city, to San Francisco, to go to Winterland to see the Grateful Dead. And lo and behold, I walked in that door, and I'll never forget the moment I walked in that door. It was like going home. It was like, it was the best feeling ever. And I was a little kid, and I remember walking into that venue and just feeling like, wow, I just met God. The band hadn't even started yet. So anyway, that's how it started for me. I knew I belonged there right at that point in my life. And when the music started, it was like it was a wild acid test. I mean, they were handing out Dixie cups of liquid that glowed in the dark because they had black lights all around, and you could see the glowing in the dark liquid in the cups. And I didn't do any at that point yet. Didn't do that, but I was around all these wild people that were just free. It was such a free place, and it felt safe even as a kid, even though I was way down in the crowd. The overwhelming experience was just such a freedom, such just amazing feeling. And so that was my first Grateful Dead experience. And after that, I wanted to go back. But I didn't get to go back till I was 13. And then I got her, she took me again, and by then it was a show at the Cow Palace in 1976, and it was Carlos Santana was opening, and it was a New Year's Eve Grateful Dead show. And we all had dinner at my aunt's house in San Rafael before, and we were going to head over to the show, and they all just were about to drop some acid, and I was like, okay, give me some. By then I had already taken LSD at the age of 12 with friends, monitored by their parents. So I had already tried it once, and my parents knew I had. They weren't sure about it, but they, I guess, later told me they figured they better just let me have some rather than me going and getting it somewhere randomly. So they let me have some. So that was my first show where I actually dropped acid, and with my family all there, and it was another level of amazing experience because the awareness was so heightened to the music and to the sense of community around was just so magical, and being with my family in that state was an incredible experience. And so that's sort of how it all started for me. And then at that point I was starting to get to be a little older, and my friends were also into going, and when I turned 15 it was the end of the Winterland era, and we were all wanting to go to the closing of Winterland. It was a really big deal show, closing of Winterland. And the tickets sold out really quick. And in those days, we had to go down to the record factory and wait online at the mall in Santa Cruz. People would go and wait all night long to get online and get their tickets. There was no digital computer online system. There wasn't even any other way. You had to go physically stand in line and camp out in the line. That was actually part of the fun. Got to meet people that way. So we went down at like 4 in the morning for that one, and it was already too late. The line was so long, and by then the audience was starting to grow. In the earlier days, there was no problem. It was not hard to get a ticket. But by then, the Grateful Dead were growing in their popularity. So we got shut out of that show, and being the kind of stubborn kind of person I am, I just wasn't going to not go to that show. So I wrote a letter to Bill Graham. Dear Bill Graham, I'm 15 years old, I live in Boulder Creek, and I went down to the record factory to get my ticket, and I didn't get them, and I was just wondering if there's any way you could help me out, kind of thing. Well, lo and behold, to my amazement, I got a return letter from this awesome woman named Jan Simmons, Jan Rousman in those years, who was Bill's assistant. And she liked my letter, she said. She just liked it. She got a good feeling from it. And she decided to let me buy tickets from her. So from then on, I got the super cool connection to being able to always get tickets to Grateful Dead shows. And I was only 15 years old, so that was a big deal. It was a really cool thing in my life to have that.